those of you joining us from places far, far away, I hope that you are having wonderful vacations. I'm really glad to see you, Mary, on the screen there. I was wondering how you were doing. You're at least upright.
I am upright, barely, but I'm upright.
And hopefully not too drugged that you shouldn't be voting on anything this evening.
I made sure to take my last pain pill at noon.
So I'll call us to order at 6:32. Do you need a roll for that? Okay. Thoughts on our, can I get a motion on our agenda? Oh, Lisa's there somewhere, but I can't see her.
She's on the phone.
Okay. Where is her phone? She's on.
It comes through that as well.
Okay, good. Lisa, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you too, Maria. Yes, and I can hear Mary, but no one else.
Good, I'm the only one with anything important.
Yeah.
Okay, motion to accept the consent agenda? Anybody? Thank
Yes,
you.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we got it. Thank you, Lisa. Comments, any reorganization to our agenda this evening? Oh, shall we vote by roll on the consent agenda? The folks joining us electronically, can you go first?
Yeah, I approve.
Lisa?
Yes, I approve.
Okay. Emily, Julia, Leanne,
Yes.
Aaron, and myself. Okay. Any reorganization to the timeline on our agenda this evening? Lynn?
None that I have.
None, okay. I had a question about the policies. I'm still hung up on why do I have to approve the G10, class rank, valedictorian, salutatorian? We don't have a high school.
You do not need to. It says she was using, I think Doreen is still using the same policy route for both
Everybody.
boards, so you could just disregard that one.
Okay.
Just say except G10.
I also have a question about that maybe it is an old copy, but it only says Enosburg High School on all of the documents.
I noticed
It's
that.
actually supposed to because the Richford High School piece is in procedure, not policy.
So at the
There.
top, it references FNESU and Enosburg Richford, I believe. I'm trying to pull it up, but my internet is really spotty.
Yeah, at the top of the letterhead.
Yeah.
Yes.
Got you. Okay, we'll relook at that. That's good feedback.
Thank you. Oh, and I had one other question that I had noted, probably you could answer really quickly, Lynn, on the class rank policy. It states the information about a student who is attending early college, not being able to be eligible for valedictorian and salutatorian rank, and then it lists that a student who has been at Enosburg Falls High School for all 8 semesters could be named co-valedictorian or salutatorian. I wasn't sure why the co, if the highest ranked student who's been at a distance learning program would not be eligible. Why would the second highest average person be a co-valedictorian?
That's a very good question. I feel like there's a scenario, Lisa, that you and I probably have both heard over the years. I think that it goes back to something that happened years ago in Enosburg where someone may have moved in that last semester and someone had been first for 8 full semesters, someone moved in and the transfer credits bumped them. So I think that's what that was protecting.
Right, I understand that. I just didn't understand why you don't just give it to the second I am the average person who is the only who's been there for semesters.
I don't know, Lisa. I think that came out of policy.
Yeah, and I've questioned this before, and I feel like the copies of policy that were attached to this email might be old copies that just got cut and pasted, but I'm not certain about that. Something just doesn't ring right about that.
For G10 only, or for the other policies?
No, just for that, just for that one.
Just for G10?
If that's the number, I honestly can't open my list, so.
I'll have Doreen take a look at that before she sends it off to the Richford board for
Okay,
approval.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments about policies?
I also had a couple of questions on the class trip policy, the overnight class trip policy, just because, same thing, there are a couple of questions. One of the items referred to the budget needing to be presented by January 2nd. I feel like that should say no later than January 2nd because some trips may happen in the first semester, and that just doesn't make sense for those trips, or maybe I'm reading too much into that.
So is it the difference between the word by and no later than?
Probably, and since I can't read it verbatim, I'm just relying on my notes from when I scanned it earlier.
I see what you're talking about. I'm wondering if it makes enough of a difference in that policy to send it back through both boards. You're on your second reading on this policy, and I'm kind of wondering if other people are feeling that the difference between on, because it does say on or before January 2nd.
Oh, it does. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
As long as it's on or before, and
It
I'm
does.
sorry I touched that earlier.
Okay.
So my first question was on substance. It was alcohol and drug use in red letters. I just was questioning why it didn't reference tobacco as well.
Trying to see where you're.
And that's kind of way down at the bottom,
Yep,
and it's
yeah.
taking the chaperones following policy, even if it's off school grounds.
Is the will of the board to send this back to include tobacco on that?
I just want to be clear of where you're at, Lisa. Are you under the last section on that policy?
I don't know where I'm at.
Yeah.
It's on number 5 on
And
page
under-
1 in red where it says including no alcohol or drugs in parentheses.
Say that one more time, Lynn.
So on the very bottom of page 1 of that policy,
Oh, I
number
gotcha.
5,
Gotcha.
in parentheses right there. So I think Lisa's point is it should say tobacco as well.
It does say it down in the conduct section a few paragraphs later.
So do we have the authority to just add it to that section, because that is a new section, right, if it's in red?
You don't have the authority to add to it. You have the authority to send it back to the policy committee and make a recommendation that they add tobacco to that section. And then it has to come back for both boards. Which is fine, we can do that if you guys want us to do that.
Yeah, the conduct bullet 1 and supervision bullet 5 are almost nearly the same thing, really. They're worded a little differently. Conduct number 1 is very explicit.
It says students and chaperones, and it includes the tobacco prohibition under that section.
Yeah.
I'll leave it up to whoever is reading the documents right now to whether that makes sense, especially people like maybe from Sheldon might want to weigh in on that, because this is the first time they've seen our policies. And does it make sense to somebody coming into our SU that it's very clear? I've just seen it so many times that I'm probably reading too much into it, and I apologize.
I mean, I would think it's covered under conduct, so I wouldn't say it's necessary to send it back.
Okay, thank you.
Other than the fact that it's redundant.
I know, that's the only part that concerns me, is it's sort of a duplication, and so maybe we eliminate one, or, yeah.
Right, right, no.
Yeah,
I mean, conduct covers it.
it's very explicit of
Number 5
everything.
doesn't really have
Yeah.
anything to do
Yeah.
with supervision.
I feel like the first part is specific to the responsibilities of all people who are supervising the class trip, and then the second reference is specific to conduct of the students and the people who are chaperoning. So I wonder if that's why, because that's where it's just referencing those policies.
Do you think number 5 really doesn't have anything to do with supervision? It's more like conduct and it's covered under conduct?
I think it's important to have it, I think it's definitely important to have it under supervision. And I don't think it hurts anything to have it under conduct, but I think that that's what I would reference if I were a principal. I would love the principals to speak up. If I were talking with chaperones for a class trip, I would make sure that they knew those 5 elements under supervision, what their responsibilities were.
And then it should probably be beefed up more like the conduct number 1. Maybe it should probably be similar.
Yeah. Tends to agree.
So do we want to send that back and have them look at conduct number 5 and, no,
Conduct,
supervision number 5 and conduct number 1?
yeah. Do we need to vote on that?
This should be the will of the board, yes.
So by roll, Mary, how do you vote?
I would be in favor of sending it back.
Okay, Lisa,
Yes, send it back.
Emily, yes,
Yes.
Julia, yes, Aaron, yes, and me, yes. Oh, Leanne, I can see you.
Yeah.
So yes, we'd like to send that back to the policy committee.
Okay.
Okay. Is there anything else we have to vote on? I'm feeling,
So are we voting on E3 and E3P and just leaving
yes.
F26?
So a motion, we need a motion to approve the minutes and policies at this point. So somebody, correct?
So I would make a motion to approve the minutes as well as policies E3 and E3P.
And F26, oh no, thank you. So we're sending F26 back to the policy committee, and we don't want to vote on G10.
Right, okay.
Okay, so Julia makes the motion by roll call. Do you approve, Mary?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes,
Emily?
Yes.
Julia?
Yes.
Leanne?
Yes.
And Aaron?
Yes.
And I also approve.
So
Okay,
you just approved E3 and E3P?
yes, that's correct. Okay, are we ready to move to visitors and public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on. Do you have any visitors that can join us electronically, do we?
They,
Not today. Okay.
So is there anyone else at the meeting that we can't see? Can you just tell us who's there?
Yeah, thank you, Lynn. Let us start with introductions because we have a new principal with us this evening who will probably appreciate that. You probably hopefully met Morgan.
Yes, I know Morgan.
Sandy Alexander, principal of Montgomery.
Hi, Sandy.
Jean Marie Clark, chair of the board.
Emily Norris, Sheldon and this board. Julia Callan from Shelton.
Ian Trombley from Berkshire.
Erin Paquette from Bakersfield.
Hi. Rhoda McClure.
And
Bakersfield
Lenny,
principal.
can you see that Lenny is also here?
I can see Lenny.
Okay. Okay, so school spotlight. We're skipping this until September.
Well, I just want to talk about that really
Please.
briefly.
Yeah.
So each of as we're going from school to school, the principals are going to have the opportunity to introduce you to their school in a variety of different ways throughout the year and the coming years, just to give each board member kind of a sense of the community within each of those buildings. So the principals and I will be working on that a little more in the coming weeks, and I look forward to the first one in September. Any questions on that?
Okay. Thank you, Lynn.
Welcome.
Morgan.
Would it be helpful if we shut off our microphones? I'm hearing a lot of feedback. I don't know about anybody else. I can shut mine off until I need to say something.
Yeah, if you guys want to mute yourselves and then if you have a question, hop back on.
You should be able to do that at the bottom of the screen. There's a little microphone icon and you can toggle on and off.
Okay, Morgan.
So I have 3 potential action items that were in your packet. The first one is around high school allowable tuition. Both Enosburg Board and Richford Board in the past had agreements with all 4 of these towns, along with I think pretty much every town in Franklin County, that when the state determined the allowable tuition, the boards would true up to the dollar what was owed either in one direction or the other. As you guys probably all know, at the beginning of the year, you're going to be approving tuition bills. They're based on an announced rate, which is our best guess, and then we true that up at the end of the year. State statute basically allows the first 3% to either be ignored by the sending school or ignored by the receiving school. We historically have not done that, but we don't have any boards that are party to those agreements anymore. I've not brought this up to Enosburg Richford yet, but I will bring this to them next week, assuming that you guys are in favor of it. Almost all of their tuition students are going to come from your district, and most of your students are going to go to their district. We would still need to follow state statute for BFA and for NVU, and then we don't have to do that with private schools. So I'm happy to answer any questions on that, and then if you're interested in entering an agreement to true up to the dollar, I would need a motion to that effect, and if you're not, I just need that guidance and we'll move on.
Discussion.
I guess the discussion would be if we chose not to, what would that look like then?
So if you chose not to, the first 3% difference would be absorbed. So if they charged you 2.9% too much, they would get to keep it. If they charged you 2.9% too little, they wouldn't be able to bill you back. And then beyond that, there would be a bill back. I think the advantage to you is that if this agreement isn't in place and that board is paying attention, they're going to want to increase whatever the announced tuition rate is by 2.9% because they want to hit that point where they're making money. This kind of prevents us from needing to play those games anymore.
Do you have any historical feedback about? I know that you guys have been doing it, but if you hadn't been.
We see some pretty big swings in tuition because our schools are so small, our high schools are so small. So I think it goes in either direction. We haven't really had to game it because we had those agreements in place. So there are some years where we're way high and there's some years where we're way low.
Comments or questions from anybody joining electronically?
I just would like to ask the people who are away from the microphone to speak up in the future. I can hear Morgan and Jean Marie fine. Thank you.
Where is the microphone for?
It's on the computer.
Okay.
We're gonna have to yell.
Yes.
Sorry, Lisa, it's that I'm a big loudmouth, that's why you can hear me really well. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I can make that motion.
Okay. Do you want a second? No? By roll, let's start
Jean
with,
Marie, can you clarify? Wait, Jean Marie.
Yeah.
This is Mary. Can you hear me?
yes, go ahead.
I got cut off, so I missed a good chunk.
Okay.
So what motion are you making? I know Morgan was doing the financial business report.
Yes. Aaron wants to make a motion to enter into an agreement with the Enosburg-Richford UUSD to charge or refund the entire difference between the announced and allowable tuition on an annual basis, which is a practice that's been done for the last many years.
Okay.
Oh, you just cut out on
Yeah,
us.
got you. No problem. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So if we vote by roll, Mary, did you want to start off our voting?
Yes, I vote in favor.
Thank you. Lisa?
Yes.
Okay. Emily, yes. Julia? Yes. Leanne?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm yes.
The second potential action item is surrounding warrants. So right now, we send the non-payroll checks out after warrants have been physically signed by any two board members. Generally, that's been Leanne and Lisa or Aaron. We have the ability to send out at least a recap by email, and I'm bringing that to both boards as an alternate way. The auditors that we believe will support us just getting emails back from board members saying, yeah, these are okay to release, and we'll keep that record with the warrants. I think it would allow us to get checks out a little bit faster, and I think it would also allow some of you who are probably never going to make the trip to Richford to actually see the warrants. So I wanted to put that out there. This would be new practice for us, but I think it would make things a little bit easier on us, and it would make things a little more transparent for you all.
My comment is I work in Williston. The chance of me getting to Richford before you guys close for business almost any day is incredibly unlikely. So if there's a way that we can share the burden across the board members and not have to always be the super local folks to you guys, I'm in favor. I would like to do that. There's a lot of nodding heads on this end. Ladies, electronically, any comments about that?
Well, I have a question. This is.
Sorry, go ahead, Mary.
Oh no, finally. So go ahead. We can talk after.
My question for Morgan then is if you would send them, is this going to be your procedure to send them out to all board members so we all can see them, and whoever the first two people are to respond, then you're good to go? And how do the rest of us know whether or not we should respond?
So yes, our intention would be to send them out after we get two approvals, and it can be your practice to copy everybody on those approvals, or we just won't worry about it if we get 5 of them. Either way is fine.
I would prefer, I guess, to know that the approvals are already being made before I take the time to send back an email saying that I approved. I guess I'd like to eliminate as much work for all of us as possible. It's a great system.
This is like the one time I would be in favor of the reply all button. I think that's
And we will still need to work out the actual procedures around this, but what we will try to do is is maybe shoot a reply to everyone once we get the second signature, so you know that you can then look at them at your leisure.
Thank you.
So I have a question though. Can you clarify for me, Morgan? We're not going to actually be able to see all the invoices from all 4 schools and have a sense of spending and purchasing.
You would see, correct, you would see a recap of the invoices, but we wouldn't be sending you the actual invoice backup unless somebody chimed in and had a question about one of them, and then we could run it through the scanner and send it to you.
Sleep mode.
Look like a red battery.
You guys still there?
I think your computer shut down.
Your screen is frozen.
Yep, the Chromebook died, so now you're on my computer.
Okay.
So, Morgan, did you hear my question?
I did, and my answer was that we would not be scanning the whole packet of invoices with that. We would just send you a recap of what's in the packet. If people had individual questions about individual invoices, we could pull them and run them through the scanner.
Okay. Or they could be accessed by coming into the central office to
Yeah.
look through the whole packet.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Have the other boards historically, so at Sheldon, we've always reviewed every single receipt and matched it against the warrant and.
The whole board
Done.
has?
Yeah, well, there's only 3 of us.
Oh, right. But like at a board meeting you do
Yeah,
that?
so we do it at the end.
Wow.
Every,
Oh, we don't do
which
that.
wouldn't be feasible for this board, I don't think. But I was just wondering what everybody else's practice was.
Is usually in habit of going through the whole packet
Yeah.
and matching it up and same idea.
Yeah.
Just making sure that nothing
Nothing's
jumps
off or
out
nothing, yeah.
and looks weird.
But we didn't do that as a board. For Bakersfield, we did that. They would let us know they had warrants to sign, and like the ladies lived here in town, and we'd make it a point to meet up with them at the town clerk's office, and we'd go through it then and sign it. But it wasn't anything that we would do as a board, because it was too difficult. Like if she wanted to get the check out, she'd catch us when she could, so.
And that was becoming more of an issue for us, because it was, we were waiting until the board meetings, the
Yeah.
checks were going out
People
late.
are waiting, yeah. So you could still do that, like Morgan still will have all that documentation, but
Right.
he isn't gonna send it all, like, he'll just send you like a
Right.
summary, and you've gotta approve it or not.
And are you going to separate the invoices by individual school still? Or are they just gonna be
No,
one?
it'll just be
Right,
one, yeah.
right, so,
Because if they're ordering,
I mean, I wouldn't
no
know what
pencils.
jumps out for,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
They're, it's a lot.
All right. So we wouldn't even know.
Which is probably better that all of us are peeking at it and keeping a pulse on all of it, even if it takes us a year to get it patterned
Right.
yeah.
down.
I mean, so even if you see like a Office Max, something that's gonna be paid to Office Max, it might be $1,000 because it's all of these schools instead of
Right.
$200 right? So, I mean, I think you'd probably still be able to flag, like, why are we paying $20,000 to Morgan? You know?
What sort of, so because we all used to sort of have an eye on those receipts, that was a check in of itself.
Yeah.
And so what sort of checks are at central office similar to that, where there's just some sort of overview of
Well, you've got checks at the school level because you've got the principals going through it. Almost everything goes through a purchase order system, so I'm at least seeing the big expensive items going that way. And then we really don't have the superintendent in that queue at all. So once it's the principals and us, it's really the board. And I think your job isn't necessarily to be kind of looking at the real granular detail of those, but yeah, if they're new vendors or big vendors and things like that.
The technology things generally jump out, or I know, new iPads, new Chromebooks, just things, large ticket items that are outside of the norm. Yeah, those type of things.
Would you anticipate eventually having, for example, supply purchases go through the SU rather than individual schools? I'm thinking like if we're buying in bulk, maybe we're getting a better deal than if individual schools are buying their pencils. And I know that that's not a place for a huge cost savings, but.
There are ways to do that without pulling it out of the individual school budgets. So yeah, I think we're going to try to find those efficiencies where we can, but we're still going to be seeing them accounted at some level on the building level rather than the district level.
Okay.
Any comments or questions, concerns? Have we got Mary or Lisa with us on there, Morgan?
They should be both on there.
Mary, any additional questions on your end? Is that her connection?
It's like Total Recall right there. Nice.
He's playing some music, guys.
Sorry, Mary, that didn't come through at all.
Mary, if you want to text me, I can communicate what you're trying to say.
And Lisa, did you have any comments, additional comments?
I can't hear anything, anyone except Morgan and Jean Marie, and Lynn. But I'm assuming that Mary is asking about details of the warrant, which I've seen by going into central office. So, are you ready for a motion or not? Nobody hear all of the dialogue.
Yes, I think we're ready for a motion. Do you want to make it, Lisa?
Yes, I'll make a motion to authorize approval of warrants and electronic.
Great. And for a vote, let's start with Erin.
Yes.
Leanne?
Yes.
Julia?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
Jean Marie, yes. Mary? Anything, Lynn?
Yes.
No. There she is. Thank you, Mary. And Lisa?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you, ladies. Morgan, your last item is the American School of Correspondence.
Yes, so for tuition students, it's pretty clear in statute around public schools or private schools that that do not have an announced tuition rate with the state. We tend to see the same private schools year after year. I've been tipped that there's a family in Montgomery that is going to be using a correspondence school for their children who are have been homeschooled through the elementary grades. In the past, when we've had a new school, I've given the opportunity to the board to weigh in on whether they feel that it's an appropriate education, which is really the only guidance that you get in statute. I think I sent a link to the school's website. They seem to have a lot of accreditation badges on their website. I didn't dig really deeply into it. But I just wanted to give you an opportunity to weigh in on whether this is a program that you guys would approve or not, and then I can let the parents know that. You will still get to look at any tuition bills that come through, and you'll get to weigh in on the residency. In this case, it's going to be an easy confirmation that there isn't. But if you're so inclined, I would like a motion that you're approving tuition for this school for the next school year. I would not bring this forward to you again unless we get some information that they've lost accreditation or we're hearing something bad about the school.
So I didn't look at the link. They appear to be accredited and a
Morgan,
diploma granted. Yeah.
You
Okay.
double check that this is a secular institution?
It is secular.
Okay.
Anybody else with additional questions?
If you're looking for a motion, I'll make a motion to approve the tuition payments to the American School Correspondence for the 1920 school year.
Thank you, Lisa.
Welcome.
Any additional comments before we vote? Okay. Lisa, do you want to start by voting?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Perfect. Emily, yes. Julia?
Yes.
Leanne?
Yes.
Leanne?
Brienne. Oh, that's a new one.
Whatever your name is.
Second to last girl. Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm a yes.
That's so funny.
This is like a really long, tough version of Name the People game.
Oh boy, that was loud.
That was a bad sound too.
Okay. Lynn, I think Morgan, you're good?
I'm good.
Okay. Lynn, I think we're ready for your report.
Okay, we're gonna see how this goes, right? Then maybe I can go on vacation every time there's a board meeting.
Oh,
Very
no.
funny.
Oh, come on. Okay, so I just need to get the bottom screen here, Morgan, so I can. So I'm gonna move into presenter mode. And I think you're gonna be able to see my entire screen. Can you see my screen?
Yep, we can. And now we can see you and Morgan on the side.
Okay.
We're good.
So I can't see any of you, but I can still hear you.
Okay.
So if I miss anything, I also can't see my agenda anymore, but I think I've got this in order. So first off, here's a color version of the logo that Tracy Brown came up with for us. What are people's thoughts? This version of this logo was hands down a favorite for all the groups that we surveyed. The only thing we changed was the names were not alphabetical, and we asked her to change that. It'll most always be in grayscale. She did send us a version that was mostly green to use with color when we wanted to, and I explained to her that we had some versions of red, green, and blue in our 6 towns for school colors, and that it was either some of those colors or none of those colors. So this is what she came up with. What are people's thoughts?
I like it.
I like it.
It was my fave.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think all but maybe one board member that responded really liked that.
I think it's important that it recognizes all the towns.
Yeah.
I like that a lot about it.
Yes, agreed. Okay. So I also sent you an agenda this month that looks pretty different than agendas you're used to seeing. So I wanted to try this out. This is an agenda that we're using with our leadership team, and we're also going to be using for our teacher in-services and things like that. It's something that we're modeling this after something that's come out of Harvard called the meeting-wise agenda form. So I wanted you to take a look at it and give me any feedback that you want on this format.
I'd like to say that I like it very much.
Great.
Me too.
I agree. Do you anticipate board minutes switching to something like that?
Well, I was thinking about that, Erin, because I think it would be pretty easy to take the minutes right in the document online, and it would be pretty seamless. Like if we set this up with Google, I haven't worked it through with my staff yet, but if we set this up on Google, whoever's taking the notes could just go straight into that Google Drive live, really.
Yeah.
So we could add the notes right in there. What do you think of that as someone who has done minutes for so long?
It would be amazing because I was really wishing for a Google document this morning when I was transferring information from one spot to the next.
Okay.
I think it's great. I think it'll look really nice and easy to read.
Okay, good. So we'll put that in Google so that the minutes can go right in the same format. Okay. I just need to figure out how to get back to where I was. Anything else anybody wants to say about the agenda template? Okay. So what I want to go over with you now, I sent this out with your agenda. I wanted you to just take a peek at it. You have seen a version of this before. This is our FNESU Continuous Improvement Plan. The difference now is that we actually have done a bit of work coding this summer. So, one of the primary differences that you may recognize is that the visuals on our continuous improvement plan are different. So you see those 5 visuals. We align these visuals with the Agency of Education. So when the agency is working on their integrated field review, or if they're working on our annual report card, the accountability measures that they have for the public schools are these actual 5 categories. So when we write our goals for the Agency of Education, they have to fall within these 5 categories. So we thought, why not just align ours with agencies in terms of the visual, so that, I think it is important that people recognize that there is alignment between the state and what we're trying to work on at the school level as well. So what we're trying to do is, I'm going to just use academic proficiency as an example for a moment. We made it a code, AP. I know, not very creative, but we thought it was pretty descriptive. So anything that falls under academic proficiency will start with the letters A. There are 4 things that we're working on under academic proficiency, so you can see the coding there. So what we've done is we've worked really hard to think about, as we're developing our professional learning for our leadership team, all of our building principals, all of our central office leaders, and then our teachers within our SU, how can we make this really transparent? So I'm putting up here now, this agenda looks similar, but this is one of the agendas from our summer leadership training. So I'm just going to give you a sample from July 11th. This was a meeting we had this summer. So you can see we used the template that you also have for the board meetings. We've made everything live, so all of our links are live in the agenda, but we've also made all of the connections to the work we're doing really tied here. So Safe and Healthy Schools, when we're talking about school safety, that aligns to our continuous improvement plan. Down here, I don't know can you see my cursor when I move my cursor?
Yeah.
Okay, so down here, academic proficiency, this is the second indicator. High quality staffing was also the second indicator. Those fell under those sections. So we're trying to be really transparent and really clear with what it is that we're working on and how it aligns with our overarching goals for the organization. We also have been trying to do this when we think about, we do quite a lot of professional learning with our teachers throughout the year. So I'm showing you now that this is a draft of our professional learning plan for the 1920 school year. So you can see these 3 days in July and this day in August. LT stands for leadership team. So those are our principals and our central office administrators. So these were the areas, the priorities that we worked on during that time. Then you can see all that reflects that it's an in-service. It's everyone together. And then there are dates that we'll be having academy professional learning dates for teachers, additional leadership team. The point of this is I'm just trying to show you the scaffolding and the planned, the deliberate planning that has gone into ensuring that we're providing professional development and opportunities for people to be making connections to that continuous improvement plan. So I kind of said a mouthful there, but I'm really just trying to show you how we're really trying to embed those meaningful connections and make sure that everything is tied to those priorities. Does anyone have any questions?
None here.
Okay. So you will, when I can, I will tell you for this last agenda, I didn't have much time to do this, but my hope is to start getting good at where I can make connections on the board agendas, to keep bringing it back to what are the goals we're working on as an organization. And if we're talking about something that ties to our continuous improvement plan, you may see some coding on our agendas over time, and that's where it'll be coming from, if you start seeing that. I hope to be able to get a summer retreat for board members, and when I put all those dates out, I think the most board members I could get on any one date. I think there was one date that I had 5 board members that were able to attend, and it really wasn't a majority of either board, and I think it made sense to do it for a smattering of individuals. So instead, Susan Holcomb from the VSBA has agreed to break it up into sections and to help us out. She may do some remotely, and she may come in person for some. We have ordered the essential work of Vermont school boards for all school board members in the supervisory union, and we'll be using that as a springboard for some of the things that we'll be working on during the school board training this fall. So I mentioned in an earlier email, the hope is that we can schedule our summer board retreat maybe when we do our reorganization in March. I've already put it in my calendar, so I won't forget to do that. But that way we get it in people's calendars before everybody's calendar was just too filled for us to really be able to accomplish that goal. Any questions on the school board training?
Yes, Lynn, will we definitely be doing the trainings at our September meeting?
That is the intention, yes.
Right.
It won't be the whole meeting, because obviously we're going to have business to do at the meeting as well, but my thinking is that we can have different components at different meetings. So do you see what I'm saying? So it won't be like one long retreat training, because you're doing this while you're actually also having your business meeting.
Okay,
So.
I thought that your intention was going to be that we just tacked on time to our normal meeting time.
It is, but what I'm saying is I don't think you want me to tack on the 2 or 3 hours that I was planning on. So we'll do a portion of that at each of your normal meetings.
I would be okay with it, but I don't know about anybody else. It's just easier if it's already scheduled, it's already on my calendar that we have a meeting, but I don't know.
It will be it is. I think we're saying the same thing. It's going to be at your regularly scheduled meetings. We're going to weave it right into that.
Okay.
Lynn, I wonder if you've looked at where we are and when, and if the majority of those chunks of time could be put when we're in Enosburg, so we're not doing a spotlight. Does that make sense?
It could if you wanted me to, but those aren't until
winter.
December, January, February.
Oh, right, the winter months.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay, never mind.
I was hoping to get more of the training done early on. You're a board that's relatively new, and I was hoping to get some of this professional learning together before we have worked together for a longer period of time.
Yes, that makes sense.
Okay. So more to come on that. So there are a couple of things that have come up in the supervisory union, and these are going to come up at the September SU board meeting. So I want to give each of the local boards the opportunity to talk about this and talk to your SU representatives, because they're going to have to make a decision about 2 practices that we have in the supervisory union at the next SU meeting. So the first practice I want to talk about is how we treat family medical leave for childbirth. So I'm going to just go through a scenario with you. So I brought this to all the principals and SU staff to get some feedback about what they thought, and you'll be able to see their feedback at the end. So right now, our current practice is that through FMLA, staff members who have a baby or whose spouse have a baby are eligible for 12 weeks of leave. They can take 6 weeks of their leave, up to 30 days, accumulated leave, as paid leave. They can take an additional 6 weeks as unpaid leave. So if they have 50 days accumulated in their leave, they're only allowed right now to use 30 of those days before they go to an unpaid status. So, some information for you to know is that within your master agreement, teachers can accumulate up to 65 days of sick leave. The question that I'm trying to answer is if FMLA allows a teacher to take 12 weeks of leave, should we allow them to use any accumulated paid leave that they have accrued up to the full 12 weeks? I put this out to other superintendents throughout the state, and I asked them what their supervisory unions and supervisory districts did. They all do some variation of the two. Some of them do it the way we have currently been doing it. Others have said if they've earned the time, we allow them to take up to the full 12 weeks as paid. One of the things that came up when we were talking about this is if you are playing hockey, right, Lenny? If you're playing hockey and you do something to your knee and you need knee surgery, and you have 60 days of accrued leave, and there are some complications from your knee surgery, you can take the full 60 days for that leave. But if you have a baby, you can only take 30 of your days for a paid leave.
Was there some reason why this practice was put into place? Does anybody know?
This was before my time. I'm not sure what the reason was. I think that it was about, Morgan, would you say about 9 years ago?
I would say it was longer ago than that.
Okay.
Because you might know somebody that ran afoul of this policy 18 years ago.
7
years ago.
Yeah.
I think the basis of it was a philosophy that childbirth is not an illness. And so they drew a very bright line that said if you have a healthy pregnancy, you're done in 30 days. If you have complications with pregnancy or if you play hockey.
The reason why I ask is my husband is on an HR team, that some of you know, and one of the things that they have, the CTO, combined time off, right? So they try to encourage their employees to keep some in the bank in case something happens. That's why I wondered if that's why they said you can only use a portion of it. Okay.
No.
That answers my question.
Morgan's explanation.
Say that again, Lisa?
Can you repeat what you said?
Oh, I think it was originally looked at as FMLA. It only provided you 30 days for a healthy childbirth, and it was 60 days paid for an injury or childbirth with complications, what have you. So I think it was just a very conservative interpretation of this statute.
Thank you.
So I asked the principals to weigh in on this, and you can see the results of the check marks. These were their comments. The check marks were other
Hold on,
principals who
Lynn.
agreed
We
with
can't
it.
actually read what you have before us on the screen. Can you make
Thank
it?
you.
Can anybody make it bigger?
That'd be on her end, unless we make the.
Can you make it bigger on your end, Lynn?
I am.
Okay.
Oh!
That's maybe too big.
And will you be able to read some of the comments? Because I obviously can't see them.
I actually thought you were going to be able to see them, Lisa. Sorry
That's
about
much
that.
better.
I have no internet.
Oh, that's right. Mary, can you read them? Not sure if Mary can see them. So the comments that the principals made, one of them said yes, and there were 7 check marks next to the yes. Another said yes, they could use sick days. Another comment was allow them to use up to 12 weeks if they have it. Another one said yes, absolutely, of course, with 2 other principals who agreed.
You just wanted discussion about this, Lynn, right? Not like a motion or
No
anything?
vote.
Okay.
I just want you to give feedback to your SU board members because the SU board members are going to be asked to give me direction at the September meeting.
Okay.
So I do have to say that Bakersfield has lost at least 2, probably more teachers because of this. And I think that Lynn, you've done a lot of work, and the SU's done a lot of work looking at how we can retain teachers, especially when we have quite a few young teachers. This would definitely be a draw to keep them here and to show that like we honor the fact that they're staying with us even though they're embarking on family.
If you were done speaking, I would just like to say something.
Go ahead.
I think that in addition to keeping the teachers that we have, I think it's really important to consider their state of mind and their how they're feeling about being new parents. And if they're not comfortable and they're forced to come back earlier than they would at another job, it's not going to do us or our students any good. So I'm actually in favor of extending it to the full 12 weeks with a portion of it being unpaid that they have not accrued yet.
Can you clarify that?
Can I just clarify something there? They already take 12 weeks. They can only get paid for up to 6 weeks, even if they have accrued more time. So we have to, by law, allow them to take the full 12 weeks. The question is really, after the first 6 weeks, will we allow them to get paid for the next 6 weeks if they have the time?
Okay, thank you for clarifying that in a question format to me, because yes, I need to clarify my comment too. I think that in a lot of cases, they might go back if they're unpaid. They might go back earlier than they feel ready to. So if they have that paid leave accrued, I would absolutely let them take it. Thank you.
Anyone else
Just a question.
want to give feedback?
The first 6 weeks of payment, is that full pay or proportional?
It
Full
is
pay.
full pay.
It is. Okay. Thank you.
Do we allow them to take more than 12 weeks? If we allow for 12 weeks of leave, will we allow for more than 12 weeks if they have it?
Well, that's an interesting question because that's the next scenario I'm going to give you. It's not specific to FMLA, but I think that, there have been teachers that have asked for leaves of absence and some have been granted. There's nothing consistent in practice that they can take more than their 12 weeks. Is there anything that I don't know about, Morgan, from the business standpoint?
No, I would say that, across our 6 towns, it has been consistently inconsistent.
Disability kicks in after 65?
60?
Could you speak up, please?
I was just clarifying when disability kicked in, and it kicks in after 60 days. Not that this connects with childbirth. I just was questioning.
But you could take a leave of absence.
Right.
I know Bakersfield, we've allowed a leave of absence before, an unpaid leave of absence, yeah.
Right. So do SU board members feel like they have a sense of how your board is feeling?
I do. Mary?
I do. Yes, I do.
Great.
Okay. So here's the next question. So we have had, and just go down for a little bit. We've had quite a few requests for unpaid leave time. So I'm just going to give you some examples of when this might come up. So we have had teachers make requests to take time that they didn't have accrued for a honeymoon, or time they didn't have accrued for to go be in a friend's wedding, or to go on a bike trip, or to, do you know what I mean? Like they may have used all their sick days. Those wouldn't actually count. Sorry, that was a bad example. But they may have used all of their personal days and they have no other time available to them. So they may come to us and say, I want to take this day as unpaid. So the way it stands now, if it's a request from the teachers, that goes to the school board. If it's a request from the support staff, that goes to me. So what I would love is if we could come up with some recommendation about when it is okay to approve unpaid leave, so it's not quite so random. So I can tell you that some boards, I think Morgan's comment, consistently inconsistent, that's another good way to describe the unpaid leave policies as well, because, you know, there have been some boards who've said no to most of the leave requests, and there have been other boards that have approved 30-day leave requests. So I'm looking for, this came up, I don't remember, I believe it was at an SU meeting this came up. So the board asked for me to come up with recommendations around some rationale around approving unpaid leave. So I've already said this part about the currently. We have a change in the master agreement in 1920 so that all support staff, they no longer have the category of sick and personal. So our support staff now has that combined time off that I think it was Julia that was talking about combined time off. Maybe somebody was, couldn't see you. The way it's written in the master agreement is that they have to use all of their leave before they request any time as unpaid. So the real question is, under what conditions do you think professional and support staff should be allowed to take unpaid leave time? Now, the principals did this at leadership, and at first I thought that someone was being funny, and I clarified, and that they really had this belief. So I'm going to let you read. Can you still see my screen, and is it big enough?
Yep, thank you.
Okay. So these are, Lisa, you can't. So whenever they want was one comment. There was one other person that agreed. There are two people that agreed with this comment. Family emergency, special one-time events like a wedding or for professional learning. Someone wrote when it's not avoidable and you're not able to schedule on a non-work day. Someone else said professionally related, meaning connected to or would bolster skills or context. I don't quite know exactly what that means, but somebody else agreed with it. For family, like a wedding, caretaking responsibilities, including the birth of a child, two others agreed with that. And then someone wrote for reality TV shows and for money-making events. So I asked for some clarity around that. And the person said, I know I actually am being serious, because if someone, maybe they did have a passion and they wanted to be on Survivor, would they really lose their job if they got called up to go on Survivor, or would we allow them that once-in-a-lifetime opportunity? And then the money-making event, I didn't know what the person was talking about, but this person said, what if somebody, their passion is poker, and they were in a World Series of poker. They're not asking you to pay them during that time. They've run out, but they're in a tournament, and they have the capacity to, be placed in this tournament. So no one else agreed with that comment, but I wanted to just put some context to it for you. So what are your thoughts as a board about when it would be appropriate to approve unpaid leave for both support staff and for teachers?
I think you have to be really careful in a lot of ways, and I think it would be most important to put some verbiage in there saying you must take operational needs into consideration before approving. It would be special circumstances, and it couldn't put the school in a right. Most policies would leave that to the discretion of whether that's you, Lynn, or, you'd have to make that kicker first before you did anything.
Right.
What happens if you don't have the leave and you just don't show up? Like, how does that work out?
Decision-making process with the principal, just because then
I think.
there would be some continuity between schools if an exception like this were to be made.
I would like to see it continue to come to the board level. I think it, in my opinion, unpaid leave is an exceptional request. So, I would think it.
And yes, I would like the board to be part of that too, Mary.
Yeah.
Julia, are you talking about circumstances like, so they got 15 sick days and it's June 5th and their child is sick? They're not going to come to school. They don't have coverage. It has to be them. So in that scenario, we wouldn't necessarily bring that one to the board because they've run out of time. I mean, we could put something in there like if this happens 2 years in a row or something like that, that it would go to the board. Or, I mean, are you talking about those like one-time shot cases, or are you talking about like extended leaves? Like, I want to not work the last 3 days of the school year because I want to go to Bike Week in Loudon, which we've actually had a request like that before.
Yeah, I'm not talking about emergency cases.
Okay.
I'm talking about planned unpaid leave.
Okay.
I also feel as though if someone has accrued time to use, that they have to use the accrued time versus just taking it unpaid. You have to use your paid time first. And then putting parameters around the time.
But the problem is right now with the way our language is, if I have a ton of sick days or a ton of other days, but that it doesn't fall under that kind of time.
Right. So can we put them in, or a greater discussion, put them all in something called like, well,
Is it in the combined time off now?
Only for support.
It is for support staff, but not for teachers. So that's certainly something that you could negotiate into your master agreement. But I don't think you want to just give that away in policy.
Right. I almost feel like trying to put some guardrails on this is harder than dealing with it on a case-by-case basis. I mean, I would be, like, I'm trying to think of something that I would approve, and all the things that come to my mind I think fall under like FMLA issues, but I don't know how long I have to be out booked to get FMLA. Like if my father in Germany is dying and I need to go for 10 days.
I think it is 10 days.
Is it 10 days?
I think anything more than 3 days, I believe, correct, Morgan?
I thought it was 5, but
Could be.
So I kind of think I don't want the word challenges, but when you think about the professions that you might be in and opportunities that come up where you can rearrange your schedule pretty easily on work from home here, or I'm going to switch this day for this day, so you can do those opportunities. But like educators, you plan everything around that school year.
Right.
And it's so hard to do anything outside of that calendar, which you don't really have a say in. You just, there it is, and you schedule it. So I don't want to give away everything because I don't want anybody to abuse it, but I also think that, like, I think there should be some wiggle room, and I don't want to play God in quotation marks to everybody who wants to come and have some sort of experience that just doesn't work in these confines of this schedule. Like, who is it for, me as a board person to say, yeah, that's okay, you can go, and no, I'm sorry, that's not worthy enough. Like, I wish there was a procedure.
I understand your point as an educator about you do have a tough schedule to work around, but I also think there is a fair amount, we give a fairly generous leave package to folks. And so I understand, like, if something comes up like a terrible illness, like, oh, I know I've used all my time, but I want to go on a bike trip, I don't know that I'm inclined to say yes to that. And even as my employee in my job, right?
Right.
So that's my...
But I think what's happening now is there's no room in the in any language that says, okay, well, I have 45 sick days and I want to do this like once in a lifetime trip that only happens in this X amount of weeks, I can't do it. There is no, like, even though I have the days, and I'd be willing to take it unpaid, which doesn't cost, I mean, it costs you a sub, but I think we should really seriously think about, or at least the SU board should think about how to put something in place so that those things can be at least considered.
So that once in a lifetime trip, are you thinking for anything, Erin, or with some parameters?
I don't know. I haven't thought too much beyond it.
I think it'd be hard to write anything that wouldn't be really handcuffing you or come back to bite you later on.
Or smoothing something.
Yeah.
Right.
But it does help if you move things into a flex leave kind of thing, which.
Then half the time you wouldn't even have to have a conversation.
Right.
Yes.
Because if it's not designated as sick, then you can use it as whatever.
Right. So that's something that, will we be renegotiating the teacher's contract this year? Yes, okay, so that could be part of the discussion.
Are there parameters around leave usage? Like some school districts have rules where you can't extend a vacation, things like that. Do we have those in place?
So we have for personal days, so if Erin was taking her family to Florida and they were gonna leave the day before February vacation because flights were cheaper, that day, if they leave before or they come back a day late from vacation, if it bookends a vacation, it is a double. So it would cost two personal days instead of one.
I mean, and I've had some conversations where this conversation around personal days, and I've had a couple individuals come up to me and being like, I've got 2 days left, so I'm going to use them between now and the end of the year. So I just feel like at some point, might as well just call them all days.
Right. Well, the other thing I think, and I forget the name of the lady that comes to the SU board to request time off for her religious observances, she made a comment once, or we've discussed how, like, she's got the sick time.
Right.
Like, and so, I mean, this is kind of a different situation, but, like, if you want to go to Loudon Bike Week and you've got 3 days left in your bank, like, you could just keep your mouth closed and stay off social media and call out, right? Like, people could do that. Yeah.
I mean, people could, I think people have.
I'm sure.
Right now, one, I think I heard Julia testing my hearing here. Capacity. I think it was Julia that was, no, it wasn't, it was Leanne. Talking about the operational needs and taking those into consideration. So teachers get, I think it's 15 sick days, and is it 3 personal, Morgan?
Yes.
So that's a lot of time. That's almost 4 weeks. And if you're thinking about the value of a teacher in front of their kids versus a substitute in front of their kids, there's a big difference. So I hear that it would, using that combined time off piece, I understand why that would be so appealing, but at the same time I have worries that there really are what Lenny just said about, there are teachers that will say, I've got 2 personal days, I've got to use them, and then in May, we don't have enough substitute teachers to go around because everyone's trying to use them.
I agree with that.
I worry about that if we open that up then from 3 days that could be used flexibly any way they want to 18 days, if there may be that same feeling like I've got to, I don't know.
It's almost unmanageable at the end of the year, and I find myself putting out an email saying, please don't, if you can help it, please don't schedule a personal day or ask for a personal day on June 5th or whatever, because 5 other people have already done that. And it's usually either right at the end of the year or right around Christmas shopping time.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
It seems extremely busy.
You can't get away. And I'm just wondering, like, as the SU board continues to work on this, that, like, if, like, those are the types of parameters you put in place. Like, it can't exceed, if it's going to exceed more than 3 days, then it has to come before the board. Or if this is, the second time you've requested it in 2 years. Like, so you do put some protections on the children and the principals.
Yeah, those are the kinds of things that I'm looking for. Like, what would those recommendations be if greater than 3 days it goes to the board? I feel like I heard you just say.
I think it's easier to put those kind of parameters on it than, okay, if it's a wedding, yes, if it's a reality TV show, no.
Right.
Yeah. All right, well, keep thinking, and if you have any recommendations, make sure you reach out to your SU board members, and SU board members, we're gonna have this conversation in September. Okay, so, principals, are you all prepared to talk about summer hiring?
Yes, sure.
Okay. And any remaining open positions, I wasn't gonna be able to share that screen because it has a bunch of other information that we don't need to post. So, I also wanted to talk just in terms of personnel. We've been working at the SU level to be able to kind of make a diagram. This is very drafty of our organization. And I just wanted to share this with you. Hopefully, whoops, I made the screen so big now it doesn't all fit.
So Courtney sent me with some printouts of that as well.
Oh good, that will be helpful.
It's so much better.
I just opened the window here and there's a delightful breeze passing through, so that's what everyone is oohing and ahhing about.
Oh, I thought you were oohing and ahhing about our fabulous.
Oh,
it's wonderful. So this is just trying to give a visual of, I'm thinking I'm gonna get rained on. I'm good for now, but I can hear it coming. So the FNESU board, it's showing that this visual that I work directly for the FNESU board. And then we have the two other school district boards, and there's that direct connection. So I won't go through the whole thing, but kind of you can follow the arrows, and we're trying to get a sense of, obviously this is intended to be like a flow chart so that you can see in terms of the supervisory capacity of each layer of the organization. This is how it's laid out. We may not have it exactly right, but we're trying to get clearer in terms of roles and responsibilities and who are the teams that are working on, like under student services, under Michelle Taberge, here's a perfect example. So we have some differences here, different positions than we have had in the past. So you can see that we are shifting and we're providing a lot more of the behavioral supports, the social emotional learning supports at the SU level and pushing those out into our schools. So that program has certainly grown over time, and we're trying to reflect that in this organizational chart. Does it make sense at all to all of you?
It does.
It's a small organization.
Yeah.
It does.
Okay, any questions? Okay. I have nothing under student, and the last thing under other, I was just going to mention that Northwest Access TV reached out to me last spring, and they mentioned that they have been recording our SU board meetings, the Richford board meetings, and the Enosburg board meetings for the last probably year. They had mentioned that they were willing to extend this so that they could do the NMV board meetings. I do believe they came to some of our meetings. I actually didn't ask, are they there tonight?
Yes.
Okay. So they had asked about whether or not we wanted them to continue to record, and they were willing to post to YouTube so that community members could see for a fee. So we haven't been paying a fee. It had been complimentary for the first, Morgan, what was it, 6 months or a year?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so it's been a while since I read that email, but I believe it was $50 for each meeting for them to post to YouTube so that the community could access the public meetings. One of the things that they said that wouldn't be possible was to do it live because of we have some connectivity issues in our area, and it would be pretty hard to be able to do those meetings live. So what are your thoughts? Do you want to think on it, have another discussion at your next meeting, or do you want to give me some guidance?
Is there a way, if we post them on YouTube, for folks to like, does it close with a questions or comments can be sent to Lynn Coda, or is there a way that, like, we can get feedback back from it?
We could say if you have questions or comments, you can contact Jean Marie Clark.
Home phone number.
She's usually home between the hours of, yeah.
Of course, we could do something like that, Jean Marie.
Okay. I mean, it's great to put it out there. I just like to pay for things that have some feedback, you know. If it doesn't seem like a good use of our resources, then maybe we shouldn't be doing that. I really like the idea of a live stream, but I have lived in this county long enough to understand the complications that brings to the table.
Right. Do you want to try it out for a little bit? I mean, I don't feel like you need to commit for a long term, but if you're wanting to try it out and you're wanting to see if we can get the feedback element to work, I'm sure that they would be willing to do that.
Yeah. Hey Lisa, I wonder if you have any thoughts on this with the other hat that you wear?
What's your question, Jean Marie? I'm sorry, I don't exactly follow you. I know why you're asking me, but what's the exact question?
Well, my question is, do you think there is value in us posting these for folks, for our community members to access after our meetings?
Sure, there's absolutely value in that, because if they look at our meeting minutes that are written, they're not really gathering very much information. But because we're so spread out now, folks in Montgomery are likely not to attend a meeting in Bakersfield to see what's really going on.
Right. Anybody else have thoughts? So the question is, do we want to try it right away and see how it goes, or do we want to wait till our next meeting to make a decision?
I think we have been talking about how to get the information out to our voters in the most efficient way possible. I think this is just one more way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I personally don't see why we should wait. I think we should make a decision tonight.
I'd like to see us continue with it. I think it's a good resource. Especially if it's going to be on YouTube where people can access it.
I certainly don't think it's going to hurt.
No.
Yeah.
We'll all have to remember that you're here. Mary, do you have any thoughts?
I'm certainly comfortable giving it a try. You know, like, I think there's value, of course, in making sure that we can connect with all the, folks from all 4 towns, and I realize travel will be challenging at certain parts of the year, and we may not get people physically coming to the meetings. I would say it'd be interesting to see, is there a way to track, so $50 per month per meeting. It's not an insignificant amount of money. So I would say I wanted to make sure that that was a resource well spent, and can we track how many people are then watching these meetings on YouTube?
Okay.
Yeah, you can just do the views.
Yeah, usually it shows right on here.
Yeah.
Mary, you're coming in at like...
Whether it's a worthwhile.
I think you can track the number of views. I don't think you can track the, who's watching. You don't have a way of knowing if there are actually people within your communities, but I think we could definitely make that work. The other thing I think we could
What I
do
just
is...
said, I'm not sure.
Yeah, if you go online, you can see the number of views for any of the videos they posted.
I think it would be nice if we I'm just wondering about principals if you've sent out your mailers, because if we decide to do that, it'd be kind of nice to put a little half sheet of paper in the envelope saying, hey, we're live.
We haven't sent
Or
ours.
not live, yeah. So it would,
We're recorded.
We're delayed.
just we want to get the word out quickly to families. I mean, that's families. We'd also need to do community. That's an option.
Do you know if we can link it on the school website by any chance?
I think we can definitely post to our school website. I think we can also post links
Facebook
to
page.
our school Facebook page.
Right.
Or our organizational Facebook page.
Yeah.
We can train people where to go look for those as well.
Yeah.
It sounds like we are in agreement.
$6 fee.
Yes, because we can't actually access the video unless they post it to YouTube. But once they post it to YouTube, we can pull it into onto our webpage, and we can pull it to Facebook as well.
Okay, great, because I missed the part about the $50 fee, what it was for, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we need a motion?
Yeah, would you like a motion, Lynn?
Sure.
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
In favor of?
Posting.
Of posting and starting immediately?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone?
Want to us to reword that?
To hire, are we hiring?
To contract.
To contract.
with Northwest Access.
Thank you.
Okay, by roll call, Mary, are you, how would you vote on that motion?
Yes.
Thank you. Lisa?
I'll vote yes, and I also need to sign off, so thank you for understanding.
Okay, thanks. Good night, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa.
Bye.
Emily? Julia?
Yes.
Leanne?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Jean Marie, yes. Okay. Lynn?
Thank you.
That's all of you? Okay. Principal reports? We have them in alphabetical order. Is that how we want to go?
That's fine.
Okay.
So I'll start with personnel for Bakersfield. We still are in need of a guidance counselor. We did have an interview today, however, with our one and only candidate. It went well, so I will need to talk to Lynn about.
You know where to find me.
Yep. So there's a possibility there.
Good.
Dan Silver, who has been our tech person here in the building, let me know that he is no longer going to be with us for this coming year. He has a new position at Lamoille North Supervisor Union. Actually,
Sorry, guys.
yeah. You took him now. And he actually started as of August 1st. So he's covering for now if we need him on an as-need basis. And we need to work out hiring a part-time person. I talked with Lenny, and Lenny doesn't need tech. Then I talked with Sandy about a possibility of combining because it is such a small position. And so
we've never had a tech person.
yeah, so we still need to work out whether or not that's a possibility.
How many hours a week was he hired for?
I think it was only like 10.
Okay, that's what I thought too, yeah.
Yeah.
If there's any way that we could figure out how to get more support in both of Montgomery and Bakersfield School, I think it would be tremendously helpful.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So there's that piece. And then we have new teachers that are hired. I just thought I'd highlight those for you. So we have a new music teacher, Victoria Rosales, 5th grade teacher, Katie Bain, math coach, Kim Brown, who's actually returning to us, and kindergarten teacher, Maura Lorraine. That's that.
Can I just ask a quick question? I
Yep.
met Victoria and I know Kim. Are Katie and Maura brand new to the profession, or are they just, if you know?
Katie is pretty new. Not sure about Maura.
Okay.
Yeah. Are we set to go on?
Yes,
Okay.
please, yeah.
Then I had some buildings and grounds information, and I'm bringing this up because this was kind of dropped in my lap by Anissa when she left. So there are two items. One is moving the pre-K playground from the back side of the building up to where the other playground is, or right near it, and then building an additional shed where the current pre-K playground is. I think the playground move, in talking to people, could be done with volunteers, community members who are willing to come and do that, possibly. I have a quote for building the shed, but we only have one quote. As far as I could see, that was what was left. Our current part-time custodian, Philip Lumbray, is interested in doing the work. So he gave us a price on that of $7,600 for the labor, and then I have a quote on the materials, and it's significant. I think together it's about $16,000. Yeah.
What's the need for the other shed?
We have things that are sitting over in Brigham Academy that need to be removed, and the town, I guess, had given the school a little bit of leeway while I tried to figure out what needed to be pitched and what needed to be stored. And I guess it's time. I guess the building there was pigeon issues too. I think
there's pigeons in it.
So some of the stuff we're a little nervous that it's going to be damaged.
The relationship between the school leadership and the select board under the previous leadership and the current select board was not great. The select board is really difficult, can be very difficult to work with, and so we struggled. So that we really are just trying to get our stuff out of there and have enough. So I know you haven't been here very long, but there is no space for anything here. So we've been talking about this shed for
years.
Yeah, I was going to say at least 2 years. So I don't know that that's the best price out there, but it is a price. It's a starting point at least. So
I'd definitely be curious to get 2 more quotes. I feel like 3 quotes is always a really reasonable.
I would agree.
Put that out for bid, and then just have to ask: are there items that you need to have access to at any point in time, or is it truly just long-term storage?
I think it's long-term storage, as far as I can see. I mean, we can go into Brigham and get the things that are in there currently. We need them.
So you rent a storage unit for like $75 a month, big one.
yeah,
Versus
but there's no key. Yeah, we could get a container. I don't know, and maybe that's a conversation to have. I feel like maybe Phil and Connie might have a better feel for what needs to go in there. I know there was an issue with somebody correct me if I'm wrong, with the current shed that has the town generator in it. There's a bunch of crap packed in around that's against code and not appropriate. So we have no space. So I think it's a very valid suggestion to get some additional quotes. We've been kind of dragging our feet on this, and I think it's probably time to just pull the trigger on it in an appropriate fashion.
And are you looking at a shed that's got full electricity, water, heat, the whole 9 yards?
No.
Or what?
No.
I probably power, but it doesn't need heat or water. It's just storage.
Yeah.
I don't even know if he was thinking probably a concrete pad. I don't even really know. Yeah.
I know.
And can I ask a question?
Sure.
Questions. This is Mary. My recollection is that we would need to have 3 separate bids for something that is this expensive of a project, right?
Yeah, that's my thought too.
Anything over $5,000, you should get 3 bids, or at least solicit 3 bids.
And just to clarify, the 7,600, I think that was the number you mentioned, that was just labor and not materials?
Yes, that's just the labor.
What's the footprint of the shed?
That's a good question. 24.
That, depending on the size, that labor seems way higher. But it depends on if we're talking an 8 by 10 shed or
No, it's 24 by 30.
That's a big. That's a garage.
It's a big shed. Yeah. And, I mean, that's evident in what's on here for a list of materials too, because it's got trusses and windows.
Holy moly.
It's a big shed.
So it definitely is something that needs to be done. I don't know that it needs to be done by like September 15th.
Right.
So I think, especially with Rhoda in as our new leadership, it's probably time to really pin down what's going to go in there, what we need it
Yep.
for. I think that we could work on that, and then if we can solicit bids like over the fall and work on having somebody lined up to do this right away in the spring for us, that'd be a great idea.
Yep.
And my recommendation is going to be for all of these projects that will be coming to you is that we sort of gather them and get quotes for all of them.
Yeah.
But we really don't commit to any sort of schedule until we've paid all of your new teachers once and have a pretty good idea of how we budgeted for them. And we also get an idea of what your tuition kids are looking like and know whether we're going to be in good shape at the end of the year or cutting expenses at the beginning of the year.
Yeah. I agree.
I just wanted to add something about moving the playground to the front. I don't know if Anissa told you that one of the reasons, I mean, they want all the kids together, but
Yeah.
the roof is separating from that. It's unsafe. So if we don't
I've
move,
looked at it, but I didn't realize
yeah,
that it was separating.
if the playground doesn't get moved soon, preschool, that the roof will either need to come down or preschool can't play out there. Because that was one of the big pushes to move the playground sooner rather than later. And if you can get volunteers to do that, I will jump for joy.
Yeah.
The big playground before there were about 4 people showed up to help.
Yeah, it was a lot of people will say they will help, but getting actual help is hard, particularly during the summer months. So, some of us here had not great experience with that, so I don't know that we'd want to do that again. Can I ask a question under the topic of buildings and ground that you might not know the answer to? Do we know what the status is of the windows in the gymnasium?
I know that there was one window in particular that wasn't put in right, and they have come and redone that window.
That's been taken care of? Okay,
Yep.
good. We waited a long time on that, so thank you.
You're welcome. The other thing that's on here is paving for the driveway. We do have, they solicited for 3 quotes, but we only have 1 quote. So, Premier Paving Incorporated didn't ever call back. Bushy Paving said, they came out and looked at it. They said they were going to give us a quote, and we never saw anything. And then Hangerford Paving did give us a quote, and it's extensive. I mean, it's probably way more than needs to be done.
Is it the entire driveway?
It is, and it goes all the way around. So, yeah. I mean, this quote is for like $76,000. Yeah.
Does that include any, like prep work before the paving?
It does. It's digging up the old, laying down new asphalt, fixing the hole. There is a hole that's out in the front part near the kitchen. That really does
And
need.
can I clarify, did you say 7,600 or 76,000?
I said 1,000.
For the paving of the entire parking lot.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
So to give a little history to the board, as a parent, the parking lot here is dreadful. It is very frequently, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, filled with potholes, just filled with, like, it is an embarrassment. I'm here to tell you as a parent and a board member, it is an embarrassment. And I've had more than one parent come to me and say, are you kidding me? When are we going to fix the driveway? This is deplorable. My comeback is I agree completely, but it's a tremendously expensive project. But the one thing that we're missing on this board are a couple of members who have a lot of historical knowledge and a lot more knowledge about groundwork than I do. But one of the real problem areas is when you leave Academy Lane and just come into the lot.
particularly in the spring. There is water that goes from the playground side to the Brigham side and causes it's all washboards on that end of the lot. And so I don't know that, if we do this, which I know it's a big amount of money, but boy do I want to have it done. I would want to make sure that there is some proper amount of prep work done to alleviate that issue, because it's not just a let's put pavement on this solution. So
I feel like that's the biggest
Jean Marie, I think what you talked about at a previous meeting was that the issues are because there's not proper drainage under that driveway.
Exactly, yeah.
So the amount that they would have to dig down in that driveway to deal with the drainage issue is pretty deep. That's why the cost is so significant, just to give people some context as to why it's 76,000 versus 7,600.
So how much, I feel like you guys have a driveway similar to Sheldon's where there's like a road.
Yes,
There's no clear delineation as to what is what. How much of the driveway is the school's?
Well, all of the not road part is what the school maintains, like when you turn off from Academy Lane. But here's what makes things a little more interesting. There's Brigham Academy, right? That's owned by the town, and there's a portion of the parking lot that's really technically theirs. And then to add to the difficulty, the previous principal was really working hard with the select board and the town road crew to be here they had said they would be here on a really regular basis to grade it and take care of it, and that was very difficult to make happen. I know that she shared with the board some issues with sanding the lot and getting them to sand the lot wasn't happening. So it was really treacherous. After our spring concert, it was pouring rain, and the entire driveway was a sheet of ice. It was terrifying. So there's a whole bunch of moving parts in there that make it not like it's ours and we'll fix it. The other thing that I was going to say, I thought you were going to ask me, is over the last 5 years or so that I've been on the board, at the end of each fiscal year when we've had some money left, we've asked the voters to tuck it into our rainy day fund. I know that's all one big fund now, but there was a fairly significant amount of money in there that is far beyond what this initial quote is that we potentially could have used to do this work. So anyhow, I'm just here to say it super sucks. So
if voters had voted to have that put away for Bakersfield, doesn't it have to stay with Bakersfield?
Yes.
So
It doesn't have to, but that's how we've decided.
Thank you for the correction. So let's say this ends up being a $150,000 project, which I think you're right, Rhoda. Like, I don't know that this bus route part needs to be done around the building, but the part, like, sort of rectangle area out front definitely could use some paving. But if that's a $150,000 project, that's a rainy day fund.
You've got money in your capital reserve fund, not rainy day fund.
Well, yes, beyond.
I believe it's beyond 76.
Yeah, so it's a big number.
But with all the work you just described having to be done, it makes more sense than just
it's not just paving. It sounds like it's just paving. One of the big issues is what Rhoda was mentioning. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm just taking over your.
No, go right ahead.
For you. Right outside the entrance that we just came in, which is sort of off the gym and the kitchen area. There's a big delivery area for the food service area, and that's also where the handicap parking access is. That's where the big hole.
Yes, there's a hole there.
Filled with like you can imagine. I mean, that's a liability at some point. So.
So did the large quote that you had, did that include the excavation for
It
the
did.
job? Like tiling and digging and.
Yeah, it has.
And who was that?
Hungerford Paving.
I mean, you could also reach out to.
I mean, I can pass it around and see what's included.
Does he live in Bakersfield?
Oh yeah. Does he do that? I don't really know. He has an excavation company.
He owns R&B. He does a ton of work.
Does he do paving?
I don't know if he does paving, but the digging
maybe
alone,
could be too.
The drainage, that's what he specializes
That's his jam.
in.
Yeah.
And he's a Bakersfield resident.
Yeah.
So I guess from my point of view, I just want to know, what are my next steps?
You've all heard my opinion.
Yeah, I'd wonder while we were talking if there was a way to do does it make sense? Because I know nothing about paving and digging, but could you do the excavation and get the drainage all down and then come back later and do the paving, or does it make sense to get it done so that it doesn't?
I wonder that too. I wonder if drainage is the problem and solving the drainage problem and then putting decent, would that solve our problem in both areas?
Right.
Yeah, paving won't get water gone.
Yeah, exactly. See, maybe that's really at least a first step.
Like, do we push for that first?
I can find, I have Matt's number, I can give it to. We have drainage issues at our house and we're trying to fix them, so we've used Matt and he's been great.
Okay. All right. Are we ready to, any more questions about it?
No, thank you. Sorry.
Well, that's fine. And then my last thing is just about upcoming events, and you can see in your agenda there's a list of things that came under upcoming events. Those are the upcoming events. We have a responsive practices training coming up it's a tier 2 piece, and this comes on the heels of knowing that we got a grant for restorative practices, which is wonderful. It's with Richford. So we will be having our coach that we had last year, Camille, be here part-time, and then she's going to spend part of her time in Richford working with them and starting up restorative practices. But her time here with us is really around sustainability and helping us get to that place where we're in a good spot to move forward. So we have this meeting with leaders who are going to be trained in how to do the tier 2 pieces of restorative practices. And that's coming up on Monday, August 12th. And then our local new teacher orientation will be happening on August 16th in the morning, and then August 23rd as a full day. Then I am putting together a new leadership team for this school. I really feel like it's important to have a group of people around me to help make the decisions for this school. I don't want to be making them alone. So I've put together 3 teachers, our coaches, and our special educator, and we're going to be having our first meeting coming up on August 16th in the afternoon. And then our local in-service will be happening on August 19th, 21st, and 26th. And then we have our pre-K orientation for parents on August 29th. Any questions about those things? Okay. You're up, Lenny.
Okay. Tag, I'm in.
Yep.
Okay. So starting at the top with building and grounds, there's a couple, this is going to get woven in other parts of the conversation as well, but obviously Berkshire has a history, and Lynn and I have had a couple different fun conversations about this, where we have a history of our bubble classes, and shapes and sizes of classes cause us to change shapes and sizes of classrooms. And what we're doing this year to accommodate our structure for our school is we actually are building an office to be used for our social emotional learning interventionists and also our school-based behavior consultant. They need a space to work within, and they were using a different room previously, but that room is now being used for a full classroom. So we took a piece of the library and we turned it into a office area that's big enough to really just accommodate a table and 4 chairs and 4 kiddos plus the teacher. But actually, we, as we always try and do, we take an opportunity and make a benefit out of it rather than a drawback, and it's given us a chance to do a little bit of library renovations where we're doing some culling of books that are probably no longer children's favorites. I know Anne is a librarian who obviously they love books a little bit more than the rest of us do. So she's doing the Marie Kondo, like, thank you for your services, thank you for sparking joy, but I need to put you away now. And I think it's turning this kids have come by and they're like, oh, so it's really cool, and it's I think it's going to make the space kind of work a little bit better anyway. So we took an opportunity to kind of do a lot of work to make that space even more functional than it already was. Another thing is, and I just sent a quote to Morgan that I received today around some water system repairs, and we had an incident sometime in the spring where our hot water mixing valve failed, which led to a kid almost getting scalded. And when Mark Larrabee looked into it, he noticed what the failure issue was and has identified it, and we're working on getting it repaired. But part of the conversation around this is that the failure was a result of maybe some of it's just fatigue on the equipment, and also some of it's also when we had our air conditioning system installed, there were some pieces that were not really installed properly or not as effective as they could be. So we had Thomas Mechanical and we also had Spates come up and do a site inspection on it to see what exactly was going on and what we could do to make it better. And I got a quote for that. They said that they would do the hot water mixing valve piece, since it was a mistake on their part to begin with. That's going to be done at no cost to us. But since they're in there, and there's a couple other things that we noticed as they did the site visit, there's some other maintenance repairs that they want to do as well, which comes out to about $2,600. Before I move forward on that one, I want to have Mark take another look-see to make sure that everything that maybe Thomas Mechanical should be responsible for is what they're taking care of. And is this extra $2,600, is that another scope of repairs, or is that still actually part of the original stuff that they probably should be footing the bill for? So I'm not moving forward yet. And I checked with Mark about this too. I'm kind of looking at Lynn because she knows, since we have our own water system, if we start messing around with the water system, we got to talk to the Vermont. We often have to deal with the Vermont Department of Conservation, Water. It's about a lot of red tape to make sure everything's going the way it's supposed to go. But this is not changing any sort of physical work. It's just repairing the nuts and bolts kind of stuff. So we don't need to do anything as far as contacting them. We don't have to take any extra pictures and show, because there's no change to the actual functionality of anything.
I trust Mark Larrabee. If he tells you you're good, you're good.
Right, which perfect. That's exactly what I was looking for somebody to say, because that goes to my little segue where I wanted to give just a public acknowledgement to Mark Larrabee and also our head custodian, Lyndon McAllister, for their tireless and continuous effort for the school, particularly when it comes around the water system stuff. Mark goes above and beyond, and his price that he charges for his work is far more than reasonable. And obviously his kids went through the school, his wife works at the school, and it just goes to what makes the school great. The people who work around there, you can just tell they love the school. And outside the fact that he did schedule a meeting at 7 o'clock in the morning, which for me meant waking up on a Tuesday in the middle of the summer. Outside of that fact, he's a great guy. He had his coffee rolling and I had to get mine. But they did do an example of something that did a ton of cost savings between he and Lyndon is, and all this stuff is well out of my realm of expertise, but we have these water pumps that are old, but they were starting to fail, but the only reason why they were really failing was because of the way they were installed was leading to some shearing forces, and all you had to do was spend an extra $150 plus man labor to re-support them. And so instead of spending, it would have been about $50,000 to buy new water pumps, you just do a little bit of TLC, and they're working as good as new now. And so it's the knowledge, but also the ingenuity to do things without, and obviously ingenuity can get dangerous when, doing things that are shortcuts, but it's not shortcuts, it's just doing good maintenance that he knows how to do. So
good to have people like that on your team.
Yes. I sit there, I'm like, he's just talking to me, and I'm like, I don't understand a word you're saying, but I'm nodding, and I'm to trust that you're telling me the right thing. But we know that he's on the right path. One other building and grounds thing to point out is the food service used their revenue from this past year, remaining revenue, before we move over to the new Provision 2 funding model for food. There was some leftover revenue that we used, plus matching funds from a grant to buy a food warmer. So it kind of looks like a fridge, except for it warms food rather than cools it. So it kind of expands our options of what we can provide for snacks and also for meals, because certain things take longer to prepare and then they go cold. We actually have a structure to keep that warm. So that'll be awesome as well. Okay, moving on to personnel. We have 4 staffing needs. The first one is that we are working on hiring a new LEAPS site coordinator. So that position opened up effective probably Monday. It might have been posted. I don't know if it's actually been posted yet. I should have checked with Heather Moore, who's
I believe it has.
Okay, because we had done some editing and I didn't know if it had been posted officially yet, but we're going to work
I've
on...
seen it in one place, I don't know about the other.
Okay. And Heather Moore and I have discussed, obviously it's a little bit late in the game, we had a hard time hiring the previous time this was opened, and if we don't have a quality candidate or appropriate candidate to hire, we're going to discuss piecemealing different parts of the job using staff within our school that have certain expertise that can kind of support the program. And I'm also working on recruiting a potential person, but that would probably be for next school year, to get this person to, as they're working on completing other professional responsibilities, see if I can shift them over into this role. But we'll figure something out and make it work and continue to move forward. We have FTE 1.0 math interventionist position. This position's grant funded. Or I have a grant that we're going to be using to fund it. It's not specifically for, it doesn't just have to be for math interventionists. We did have an applicant that we interviewed today. The interviewee is promising. I'm hoping to finish reference checks over the next couple of days and hopefully scoop them up before somebody else does. But we're pretty fortunate to see somebody of this level of quality this time of the year. So hopefully that works out. And if not, we've worked on different scheduling things. And if we didn't have anybody to fill the role, it obviously would not be ideal because of all the different positive impacts of having that skilled interventionist and all the work we've been doing with the DMG report, trying to provide high-skilled instructors to those children who are struggling or needing, and also improving first instruction in general. But we do have a model that'll prioritize our remaining math interventionists as best as possible. So then, going back to that story I said earlier about changes in classroom sizes, at one point I was given a warning, almost maybe even 2 years ago, like, watch out for this coming kindergarten class, it's going to be big. And then a year ago, it was like, not as bad. And then we had a conversation with the previous board about, like, and with Morgan about, like, do we need to anticipate 2 kindergarten teachers or not? And we waited to see what kindergarten registration brought out. That number was 18. So we're like, well, maybe it's not going to be that bad. And then it's now 24 in like a month. So 24 is a pretty large number. So I've had conversations with Lynn about this in the past. And I also had conversations with our current kindergarten teacher. And what we have landed on is our first plan is going to be simply getting a kindergarten paraprofessional. Because many schools already have that, simply because those littles, it's a lot of hands and feet and a lot of shoes to tie and a lot of backpacks to take off, and just some simple manpower matters a lot. And then the conversation we've had is, could we split them up or should we split them up? And some of the piece of that conversation right now is our current kindergarten teacher is a dynamite kindergarten teacher. And if we were to split them up, we need to hire another teacher, which obviously has its own budget impacts, which if we have to do, we have to do, but it's also wondering about what kind of quality educational experience is that other crew going to be getting. And then there's logistics challenges around what the space is going to be and whatnot, but I'm pretty comfortable right now about that's our first plan is get a kindergarten paraprofessional, and then as those 24 or maybe more kids come in, if the dynamics show that we really need to do something different, we will go down that path as well.
Is there, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but is there some number where the rub is so much that you have to get another teacher?
Legally speaking,
you're looking at me, aren't you? Like,
yeah. I thought we had this conversation before, and I think it was technically no, but there's probably something at like 32 or something.
Yeah, I think if we go much higher than 24, we're going to be having a serious conversation about splitting. I've seen Jessica teach with a group this large before, and she's been able to manage it with some support. I think that, I understand the concern if we're putting a brand new teacher in and we have to split, say we go to 26, we would work with Jessica to support the new teacher and figure out how to make it as equitable as possible for both groups of students. So if that did happen, we'll work to make that the best scenario we can make it. But I think that, it's hard on August, I've lost track of the day, the 7th, to to really know, because you could have 3 kids that register in a different school before school starts. So you don't know if you're gonna end with 24, or you're gonna start with 27, or maybe he's gonna only have 21. It's hard to tell at this point in the year. But he has cause for alarm, rightfully so, at this point.
And the other, so we're actually going to, I have an idea of which person I currently have to fill that role, but then it's going to create a domino effect of a para opening in a different position. So that's one para that we're looking to hire, and then there's still a one-on-one paraprofessional working with a child who requires some behavioral support that we're looking to hire as well. So technically, out of budget, it's 1.5 paraeducators more than we initially budgeted. However, I am anticipating about $46,000 being available if a certain child is located in a different school. We might actually have some funding available because they were requiring specific staff that we hadn't originally budgeted for. So there's one option there, is that I might actually have some money available to use on this. And then the other piece is, if that does not occur, then I will also be working with Morgan to shift some funds around that to make sure that we have those. Because I believe both of those two, the kindergarten paraprofessional support and that one-to-one, are both important, valuable things to have. We did have that one-to-one last year as well. Okay, so that's personnel. So then moving on to curriculum and learning, and a couple of things. So the first one is, you'll probably get this from Sandy as well. I attended the first of three-day trainings as part of the Waddington Institute. Do you want to speak a little bit, Lynn, to like the background of the whole program itself, or have you guys heard about the Waddington Institute? Try to remember if that's something we've covered.
Well, I think that some of the board members have probably heard about it before, but you guys know more than I do at this point. But what I know is Margaret Waddington left when she passed a substantial endowment in the state of Vermont. And her intention was to develop leaders throughout the state, educational leaders. And I think that there was something about, it's all inclusive. Obviously men and women are welcome, but I know that a big push for Margaret Waddington was developing strong female leaders. So we have had several of our principals go through the Waddington cohort at this point, and I'm so happy that Lenny and Sandy are both going through it this year. So I'd love to hear from both of you about how it's been so far.
So it's an all expenses paid, the grant that she gives. You have to apply for it and then qualify for it, and it pays for the trainings, it pays for the flights, it pays for the hotels. The first training was 3 days in North Carolina, then the next 2 are one in the fall and one in the spring here in Vermont at somewhere in Stowe, I want to say. Yeah. So the first one, I'm gonna take all of your thunder, but you can probably talk with me. Let's both of I talk on this one. I don't want to steal it all and have all the fun.
No, you're not stealing anything.
So the first one was a 3-day training, and it was called The Leader Within, and it really explored. We collected a lot of different data, surveys of our students, surveys of our teachers, and then also doing the Myers-Briggs, and then another one called like the FIRO-B, which kind of learn about. It's all collectively about learning about who you are as a person and how that impacts your leadership. And it was some really powerful, you get a little bit of ouch when you kind of learn about, oh, I didn't realize that things I thought might be awesome or work a certain way have other impacts on people. But it was really, really illuminating for me, and I think everyone felt the same way. You learned a lot about who you were and how that impacts, how that comes out of you as a leader, and also how it impacts others because of that. And I've got a lot of growth plans built out of that to help me as a leader. And then there was a second piece. So that was one piece from this, is learning about who you are as a leader and that impact. But there was also a part about, like, generally speaking, what do you want to work on to help improve your school? And not the same thing as like our comprehensive improvement plans, but something that you can work on yourself that's going to be leveraged into improving your school. So what was the term that they have for that? The key leadership challenge is what that was. And so that was also really empowering. And a benefit to this is it also was one of those few opportunities where we got to work with other principals. And being principals, you are really on an island in your school. and it was great to be able to collaborate. And we're building this community of how are 15 of us.
This cohort was like 25 or
Yeah.
24 or something.
So it was a pretty big
And
one.
It's the first cohort that was all principals. They've done leadership teams, they've done a mixture, but this was the first one, all principals. And so we remain in the same cohort for the entire year.
That's cool.
And then another piece of it is we each get our own personal coach, that we have some coaching sessions sprinkled out through the year, and they're going to help me or help each of us work on that feedback we got from the leader within data and also on our key leadership challenge. And what's kind of interesting about it is the CCL, the Center for Creative Leadership, which is where we were going. It's an international company that works. I like to think sometimes we're just kind of small beans Vermonters. It was great that we were there, but they're also Fortune 500 companies, so it's this huge mega complex that's really is amazing how much information and knowledge they have about leadership, and they have ours is specifically tailored to education, which was also really cool to see. But then we would go to lunch and we would see people that were probably dressed and behaving a little bit differently than you might see us Vermont principals doing. So that's one curriculum and learning update. The other one is talking about middle school structures. So for next year, and this has been, a little bit of it is kind of my soapbox, but a little bit is like as we continue to move to that focus about building 21st century learners, obviously it's tremendously important to build kiddos' capacity in literacy and mathematics, but at the same time, it's also, we get assessed on science. And we all see across the state, you look at the science scores, and not just our school, but we're like, wow, it's a little concerning the capacity that our children have around science. And then you look at us compared to us as a nation, compare us to other developing nations, and it's still incredibly concerning. So one kind of pet peeve I have for that, plus me being a social studies teacher myself, is I wanted to see if there was a way that we could really find a way to provide some really high-skilled instruction in those two fields that wouldn't also take away from ELA and math. And so the structure we've come up with is I'm going to have a middle school social studies teacher and a middle school science teacher. They're not going to have hour-and-a-half long blocks like our math and ELA teachers do. Instead, they're going to kind of have half that size. And what that's allowed me to do, and what I've been talking with Lynn about it, and I'm continuing to work on it, is because of that structure, my two middle school social studies science teachers right now, and it's not going to stay this way, we're working this out, they have a little bit of free time in their schedule that the math and ELA teachers don't during one of their blocks. And what I'm going to be doing with that is working on finding ways to have them actually teach down to 3rd and 4th grade to start getting some of that science and social studies instruction in 3rd and 4th grade. As a former social studies teacher who would pick up 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and I'd look at what I was supposed to be teaching them in 6th grade and realizing certain geography skills they're supposed to have, and they have no context for anything. And what I'm wanting to teach them in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, I have to backfill a lot. And so I empathize with that. And it's also concerning when when you don't have a sense of self and a sense of place as a citizen, the tremendous impact that has on you as a voter, as somebody who's engaging in society. And it's concerning to me. Like I said, this is a little soapbox. It's concerning to me the deficit of knowledge that our young people are coming out with. And that doesn't mean like whether or not people know about the Holocaust, although I would probably say it's important. It's not necessarily the content specific, but it's just those general skills and concepts that I worry our young people are lacking. So that's going to be a really exciting opportunity for them to teach down into the lower grades. And what that's also going to do is carve out some opportunities for my 3rd and 4th grade ELA and math teachers to have some ability to come up into the math and ELA classrooms during that time and provide some extra instructional support in the middle school so we can get some more people caught up in that middle school level. So that's the plan. It's going to require some serious scheduling, chicanery, and meeting tomorrow. I've met with Lynn a little bit about this, and I'm going to meet with my team tomorrow to see if we can craft out that schedule.
And to ensure that those people are appropriately licensed.
Yep, having conversations about that.
Okay.
That's a big. I called her and I was like, I think I have a little L legal problem, and I asked her, she's like, no, that's a big L problem. I was like, okay, we'll treat it as a big L legal problem.
It's a big L licensure problem because if we get it wrong, it's my license on the line.
Yeah.
So I say it's a big L.
And so obviously, this is, you can't, I'm going to complain about something that I can't do. I'm just going to throw rocks at a big ship at the moment, but it's one of those interesting challenges in the pre-K 8 school where licenses but wanting to work with kids. And then there's all this stuff in the DMG report and other places about best practices, about having high-skilled people or skillful people work with the kiddos who need it. So in my mind, I would think a middle school licensed social studies teacher should be more equipped to teach social studies or science to even 3rd and 4th graders. But as licensures go, they would say, nope, you can't do that until you get the license. But then to get a elementary license as a middle school teacher in science, to get an elementary license is not simply just a phone call and a transcript review, unless that person's taking a lot of classes you wouldn't expect them to take. So that's just a pet peeve, but we're going to work through that one way or the other. What is good, though, is on the flip side of that, they have made a recent law, and Lynn might be able to clarify a little bit better, that if you are licensed through 6th grade and you work in a pre-K-8 school, it's pretty simple to get that license extended to the 7th and 8th graders. So at least they're thinking about it going up, but I'd love to see them be a little thoughtful about going down to an extent. But we're going to work through that regardless. So another curriculum and learning piece is, and from my former board member, or last year's board members that are currently on this board, I changed the Unified Arts schedule last year to go from seeing each Unified Arts teacher once and or twice within a week to seeing the same Unified Arts teacher or class for a 5 to 6 week session. And the thought process around that was it would create greater continuity in the kids' day. It would give teachers an opportunity to build more rapport with their students as they would see them consistently day in and day out, which would also allow them to leverage into deeper instructional practices and deepen their learning in whether it be music or art or any of the other Unified Arts classes that we have. One of the concerns that I heard from the town around this came around PE and that physical education piece. As we talked more, it was a little bit less so about PE as a physical education component, but as a physical activity component. They're concerned about some of their kids not getting physical activity. However, I made sure to clear all this with the AOE to begin with. But one of the things that we did have is we have recess in the morning, plus recess at lunch, plus or after lunch, and movement breaks during the day. So our kiddos were still getting a lot of physical activity outside of going into PE class. And even then, once we moved my PE teacher to full-time 1.0, they were still getting a sprinkling of once a week getting to PE as well. So even though a kiddo in, say, kindergarten might not have PE for 6 to 12 weeks as a daily class, they're still going to see that PE teacher once a week anyway, plus all the other physical activity that we have built into our day. But I know that the feedback I got from staff was they're highly supportive of it because it increased the consistency, allowed them to build relationships, which improved their classroom management, and did lead to deeper learning as well. All right, and then for the middle school level, the UA model is going to continue to have the exploratory model. However, we're going to make a commitment to introduce an exploratory offering that we haven't had in the past, which we're just going to simply call play. Or not play as in run around, but play as in acting. That came out of when I saw last year we did like a little bit of a Genius Hour thing at the middle school level, and one of the Genius Hour classes or offerings was to do a little play. And it was like a 1-act, 12-kid play, but the passion and energy those kids brought to that, and then also the opportunity to do that kind of thing was so profound. And so I saw it and I was like, we need to make sure we're doing more of this. So Mr. Ho is going to take the lead for 2 of our UA sessions in the spring are going to be dedicated to play practice. And then the other UA classes are going to offer their normal things such as tech or art, but they're also going to complement some of the play preparation. So art class during that time is going to be spending a little time doing some set design, and same for the tech class as well. So that'll be kind of interesting. And we're working on, I think we're going to try to either have the play get performed at the high school, or there's some place in Enosburg town, there's like the Opera House. We might end up doing it there. Those are big dreams. We may keep it smaller and just make something work. So our plans around that. And then I'll probably be the second out of like every principal in the state that's going to say restorative practices and restorative justice. We are going to begin slowly dipping our toe into that water. I went to a training with my behavior support team around restorative circles and restorative practices in May, And one of the big takeaways from that is that we need to learn more about this, and then I'm going to start working on consulting with I'm working on identifying some people who we can bring in to do some consultation and training throughout the year. And it's gonna be a slow multi-year process for us, and year one is gonna be kind of exploring and learning, and maybe even introducing, I'm probably gonna take the lead on doing some circles, but they're not even gonna be restorative circles, they're simply just gonna get kids and adults used to seeing and doing the circle part of this much broader context. But the goal is to build ourselves into a restorative justice school because of all the values and benefits. We'll probably do a presentation at some point about all of this, so I'm kind of glossing over that. It's super duper important, and it has lots of impacts in lots of different ways, and it's obviously something our children and our schools need as we continue to be a society that is in crisis when it comes to decency, compassion, safety, trust, and respect. And that's my story. I'm sticking to it. That's all I got for you.
You want to talk about your dates that you have for Bowman?
Back to school night, 6 to 7 on Monday. And then we also have pre-K parent orientation is the half hour before. So,
My turn?
I promise I'm all done.
Okay. So you may notice that my report is kind of
This one?
small and brief.
No,
but the way
26.
I've always done it has been an outline, and then I've talked to the points. So I wonder if we need to have some sort of expectation for what our reports are. So I can add more to it in the future, or we can make the same categories. I don't know if that's something we want to do, but anyway, I did notice mine looked a little shallow, but it's really exciting.
It's August.
Okay, and then it's really exciting because the very first thing I want to talk about is I have someone to teach middle school math.
Yay!
And I'm very pleased
Sisters around.
because we've been advertising since January.
Yes.
And our middle school math teacher retired, and honestly, we thought we started the process very, very early.
Yeah.
And then we hardly had anyone apply. And someone from the Philippines here and there, but it
was a
was
lot.
really shocking to me. And then I thought when it was time for our contracts, to come out, and there's that window of 2 weeks, I thought maybe we'd have more people apply. It didn't happen. So
Was it lack of candidates as opposed to bad candidates?
there was a combination, because once our contracts were all signed, and it's just like any teacher in the state, once they sign a contract, they cannot break their contract. So, once that window is closed, we need to be looking at people from out of state. It was a very shallow pool. So, a little bit of panic, but I think we have a great plan. I knew Mary wasn't going to be present, and I did call Mary today to fill her in on the details because she knows the players, but to be kind of brief about this, Lara Morales, who's been with our school for quite some time, 14 years-ish, was our special ed teacher, has now been our reading specialist for the last 3 years. She is going to be teaching middle school math in the morning and filling those core classes. And then she's going to be doing her intervention in the afternoons. And she also wears a .2 special ed hat, so she's Fort Dillingham trained and does that as part of services, some IEPs. So she's extremely confident, up for the challenge. As a special ed teacher, she was in that classroom with Steve Moran often for years, and she's very confident that she can do it. And I think that she's kind of sparked up about it too, because she's excited about the challenge. And she came forward with the idea a while back as this is what we can do if we have to. And I honestly didn't think we were going to go there, but here we are, and we're really pleased with it. In addition to that, we have hired someone who was a former para for us, who was very well received in our building. She's coming back to do some of Lara's intervention in the morning with the younger students, and she will be under Lara's supervision, and we're going to send her to some trainings. But when she was a para with us before, she was already doing some of the LLI, that's level literacy intervention, for Lara with the middle school students. So she's already done some of it in the past. She had moved away, but she came back, so we're happy to have her back. So that's my really super exciting news. And I'm going to be putting out an email to staff tomorrow, and then it's going to be included in my family letter that I'm sending out at the end of the week. So I think everyone will be happy to hear that. I have my school activities, pretty much the calendar is out there for everybody, and our open house is Tuesday evening. It's the night before school starts, so we always have that from 6 to 7, followed by the first day of school. All of our in-service is the week before. We start with everybody else on the 20th with in Enosburg, and then we have 21, 22, 23 following as local. In my other, yes, restorative practices, and I'm very excited that I had some grant funds available, and I have been talking with an agency that Lynn recommended called Up for Learning. So I don't know if you've looked at it at all, Lenny, but Lindsay Hallman, the program director, I've met with her a few times, and we've done a lot of collaborating online. I just recently signed an MOU for the year, which will consist of 4 hours of full staff training at in-service, followed by a team that we'll put together with probably 4 staff and 8-ish middle school students that we'll have 3 retreat days throughout the year. And that's going to be spread out throughout the year, and it'll be on site, so they'll come and meet with our team. And then also 2 more teacher days. We have critical friends meetings that one of our in-service days is broken up into 4 2-hour meetings for the teachers. So 2 of those will be dedicated to some more learning along the restorative practices line, and I will invite all staff to come to those meetings. We also have some other online just consultation built into the MOU. So I feel like it's a real strong start. And Annie O'Shaughnessy, who's been in Bakersfield, will also be coming out as part of the, I think she's coming out with Lindsay to help us on first day with our restorative practices training. So that's big for us. I do feel like, tagging on to what Lenny said about our Margaret Waddington, yes, it was a lot of self-reflection, really great feedback to be able to get a feeling of what the staff is thinking. And I do feel like this fits in perfectly with some of the things that I think point to culture building in our school. We have an amazing group, and I feel like this is just the perfect next step for us. So it sounds like it's great that we're kind of united on this as well, so more consistency within the SU, within our district. I think it's great, so very excited about that, and that's all I have.
Lynn, did Christy give you any, do you ladies have anything to say about Christy's report?
I'm glad to see the
You're
final
on mute,
list of new
Lynn.
teachers.
Sorry.
There you are.
Yeah, I forgot to hit the mute button. So Christy's report is in there, and I think that, Christy's been working really hard on hiring this summer.
That's a long list of her report.
So she has can you all see what her report is?
Yeah.
She has a pretty comprehensive list of the hiring that has happened this year. And I know that we all knew at the end of the year that we were going to have quite a few positions to fill in special education. And I know that I think they're close. I haven't been in the office this week, so I'm not sure if we have a signed contract yet for that middle school special educator. But they were close when I left on Friday. I think they're still trying to fill that pre-K. They were batting some ideas around about that. I think that she gave you some updates on the work that's going to be happening around school security and safety. One of the things for you to know is that Sheldon was in Franklin Northwest, obviously in previous years, and they had also adopted the ALICE training program. Their rollout and how they implemented it was a little different than ours, so we talked with Christy, and the trainers that we have from our organization are going to push in during Sheldon's in-service, and we're going to do the training that we did for all of our schools last year in Sheldon so that they'll get the opportunity to have some of that hands-on technical training as well, and that online certification. So I do know there's been a lot of work going on in Sheldon. I got a tour of the building when I was there this summer, and there was a lot of painting and cleaning and some big work happening in your library. It was a little bit unrecognizable when I walked in there, but I'm sure Chrissy will have that ready to go. She has all of her dates embedded for the beginning of the year, including her new teacher, her in-service, and all of the first day information as well. So I'd love to say any questions, but to be honest with you, I may not be able to answer them. You can try if you have questions.
Did you ladies have anything you wanted to add? No. Okay. We're gonna let you off the hook easy, Lynn.
That's great. I am on vacation, you know. It's good for you to let me off the hook easy.
Okay. We are at board business. Any future agenda items that anybody wants to bring up? Okay. I think that's it. Any other comments for the better of the good?
Next meeting is September 4th
Yeah.
in Berkshire.
Is that one, and for that one, should I be anticipating providing a background on my school? Are we going to do we want to do a tour of that space too? Is that what we're thinking? Or just kind of give them a taste of what we do here, or there in this case?
You can. I believe that many of them already received a tour. Did we already do that? I feel like I remember walking around Berkshire.
Oh, yeah.
We did, but it was just when Berkshire and Bakersfield had been at the
I
table.
can't hear you, I'm sorry.
It was just with Berkshire and Bakersfield.
Oh, okay. Okay, so if we can talk about that, Lenny, I mean, if you want to include a tour, maybe if you want to do a quick, on your way out of Bakersfield tonight, if you want to do a quick walk around that building as well.
Sure.
I think that, you know, one of the things we're going to be talking about next week for the principals in the room is highlighting something that's going on in your building, and Lenny's going to be first up September 4th, so there are these great stuff to share. We'll talk
I always
about
want
Set
you to
the
go
bar
first.
high.
I'll set the bar.
Set the bar.
I will set the bar.
Oh, yay.
It's gonna be a long meeting if we
Okay,
do.
anything else that anybody
and for
wants to
training.
add? Mary, anything that you wanted to add? Are you still there?
I'm still here.
Oh, good.
I'm good, thanks.
Thank you for joining us when you're not feeling 100%. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to be able to do it.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
Seconded.
I can make that motion.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a great remainder of your summer. We'll see you in September.
Okay.
Take care.
Have a good start, principals.